be everyone's cup of tea. It is true. Hello, YouTube. You are now live with Instagram and Facebook too. I'm here. Jesus Christ is behind me and in front of me, and YouTube is cut to me. The human aura. I hope that you'll share someone who could also use a smile. I'm going to take off from where we left off last week, Thursdays at 7 p.m. is when we will come together to read a book so that you can go to bed with a smile on your face. It is true. This will be the reading of the aura. Listen up, I will not sing that, but I say no, that no one is capable of making you upset without your consent. Affirm I am a piece of the whole, and I act in accordance with the wholeness of the Tao. It is true. We're in a new month, February. Rabindranath Tagore. I don't know necessarily how to pronounce that, but that's okay. I say to you, if you would eventually like to do a card pull, I would be happy to do that if you leave a few words to say that you would like to know what is going on in your world. We can come together another day, but for today it is time for us to read the human aura. So I'm getting myself comfortable. I hope you will too. Tonight I gave myself some hot cocoa. It is lovely. Cocoa is, well, cacao. Cacao is a heart opener. Did you guys see the play on words at the dollar store? Dollarama has a little book, Be a Gold Digger. I like it. And also, I brought myself a kiss for after, because it is about creating moments and opportunities for you to work with your inner child, the artist within, just like in Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, where in it she says we need to have an artist date and actually set some time to go away with the little guy or girl inside, that actually we honor them by giving them authentic presence and connection with self. It's beautiful and it's so required now more than ever. So I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you. Except I'm still on the platform. So here we go. Chapter 4. The reading of the aura. The trials of life that come to man are in reality his teachers. That is to say, they substitute for his teachers because he will not hear them. Yet it has been clearly recorded in the scriptures and ancient writings come when man should see his teachers, and that they should not be far removed from him. So many today are concerned with the facial expressions and appearances of the teachers without ever realizing the lines of character and soul reality that compromise, or that So many today are concerned with the facial expressions and appearances of the teachers without ever realizing the lines of character and soul reality that comprise the inner being of a man or woman. Let the true seekers be concerned then not so much with the outer beauty of appearances, but with the inner beauty that produces those manifestations in the human aura, which bring the admiration of every ascended master, because they are the fulfillment of the God design. If any of you have ever been judges in a contest of beauty, you will understand the difficulty in making a selection from among the manifold aspects of God's beauty. In the case of the ascended masters and karmic lords, it is sheer delight that motivates them to pronounce their seal of approval on all that is the God intent in those who aspire to represent the brotherhood and to glorify God in their body and in their spirit. What a marvelous forge of possibility exists for every man. I want our students to think of the richness of the natural, radiating, consecrating devotion that God has placed within man, The opportunity to express the perfection of the Holy Spirit, when rightly apprehended, enables man to fashion the wedding garment of his very Christed being. Now, I know that through the years, many of the students of the occult have stressed the ability of the disciple to read the human aura, to interpret it, and in effect to see it. May I say at this time, and quite frankly so, that no psychic ability or even the ability to read the human aura denotes in the person who does so the mastery by which the true adept overcomes outer conditions. I do not say that adepts do not have this ability. I simply say that the possessing of this ability in partial or even in total proficiency is not necessarily an indication of the advanced spiritual development of the individual. Also, it would be realized that those who profess to read the human aura may do so very poorly in a confused manner or in a very limited depth. In order to correctly interpret the reading of the human aura, one must be able to read the karmic record and to have some insight into the total being of a man. I would far prefer that the students would consider the benefit that the I would far prefer that the students could consider I would far prefer that the students would consider the benefit that can come to those through beholding good in themselves and in others, and through striving for the good, as my beloved cohort Almira has said. For the fruit of striving may not always be apparent on the surface, even on the surface of the aura, but it stands behind the real life record of man's attainment. This is why God has said, "Judge not, that ye not be judged." Here at Shigasti, which has a footnote that I am recommended to see, except I don't quite know where these footnotes would be. But we're doing this together, so I ask each of you, how are you tonight? What is going on in your world? Notes to pages. I wonder it's here. We are indeed. The master ascended. Oh, that was a little short one. So Shigasti is the ascended master Katumi maintains a spiritual home or retreat in the heaven world over Shigasti, Tibet. So Shigasti is in Tibet. Okay, so we'll just read this all in one, and then I'll be able to edit this and then have some fun posting it on Spotify after it's all done. So you can just buy it all in one. Actually, you don't even have to buy it. It's just you go listen to me read it there, and then you get it for, well, no, I think maybe you do have to pay for it. I don't really use Spotify, but I need to start doing something to monetize on what I'm doing. But I really just want to give it away because it's like, this is so sacred and like you need it so much because we're at a spiritual point in war. It's the territory being fought for is our souls, and you matter so much. Your soul, your God spark. My God, I just need you to know how much you matter. So now that I've overflowed, let's go back. Do you ever just breathe with excitement and enthusiasm? I'm using my toe to brace my book. Nick Vujicic, he, if you're not familiar, is an Australian gentleman that was born with no arms, no legs. He's got what they call a flipper, where it's like a partial limb, but he uses his foot to do a whole lot of stuff. So I thought of Nick when I used my toe. He was very much involved with the John Maxwell team in the latter years when I was attending the summits or conferences. But yeah, so anyway, that was cool. But I thought of Nick when I used my toe. So here we go. Here at Shigasta, we concentrate on the sending forth of holy wisdom. We concentrate on harmony and on true loveliness. There are times, of course, when man must perceive that what is acting in his world is not of the Christ. It is then that he must be able to disentangle himself from his problems and to recognize that neither his problems nor the unwholesome conditions that surround him are the nature of God. Therefore, the Lord does not require him either to prolong his problems or to be weighed down by his environment. Might I add that by nurturing the divine man, might I add that by nurturing the divine nature, man finds that the aura will quite naturally resemble the presence in its radiant perfection. This is the pattern that appears in the heavens of God's consciousness and that can appear in the heaven of every man's consciousness, where it flows out from the seed pattern of perfection within man, even as it manifests in the presence above. When Jesus said, I and my Father are one, he referred to the balancing of the divine radiance of the God presence and causal body within the outer manifestation, which through his reunion with reality had become one with God. Hence the color rays, which had been focused through the coat of many colors, now became the nimbus, halo, or radiance of the Christ consciousness around him, the seamless garment that he wore as the Son of God, the corona. We have tried to make apparent in this discourse the fact that ordinary human beings are not endowed with this sense of perception. Ordinary human beings are not endowed with this sense perception of the human aura, and this should always be borne in mind. Pilate heeded the dream of his wife, who warned him to have nothing to do with that just man, more than the testimony of virtue manifest in the one who stood before him. He could find no fault with Christ Jesus, but he did not bear witness to his perfection, else he would never have permitted the crucifixion of Christ, nor would he have turned him over to the Sanhedrin. The common sense approach to the realities of God is to be found in depth in the being of man. Man is a veritable treasure house of beauty and perfection when he returns to the divine image. And I know of no better way to produce the miracle of the star of divine radiance in the human aura than to become one with God. The seemingly impossible hurdle is the panacea. The seemingly impossible hurdle is the panacea man seeks, and he shall find it if he seeks diligently enough and does not fear to surrender his little self. For all human wills will be cured, for all human ills will be cured by virtue of his becoming the divine in manifestation. More harm has been done in the world by fraudulent readings of the human aura and false predictions based upon these readings than man is aware of. What a marvelous thing it will be when man turns his perception to the beholding of the reality of God in his very thought and standard. Now, I must, in defense of some arhats and advanced adepts upon the planet, affirm the accuracy of those who are able instantly to detect in depth the vibratory patterns manifesting in the world of others. It is incorrect to suppose that these will always speak out concerning their discernments. It is incorrect to suppose that these will always speak out concerning their discernments. Naturally, gentleness and the will to see perfection supplant darkness will guide their motives and acts. But I solemnly warn here that whenever you are in the presence of a true adept or even an unascended master being who has mastered many elements of perfection in his life, you should understand that if there is darkness of motive within you, he may see it or he may choose to ignore it. By the same token, I solemnly warn those who fancy themselves adepts, but who in reality have not overcome more than an iota of their imperfections, and who have achieved in the eyes of God but a small portion of that which they imagine, to take heed that they do not incorrectly discern in their so-called readings of the lives of others some quality that may not even exist, for thereby some have brought great karma down upon their heads. All should exercise humility and care in placing their value upon the development of the soul. All should exercise humility and care placing their value upon the development in the soul of the higher consciousness of the God presence, for this is without money and without price. It is the invincible attainment by which men become truly one. I would be curious what it meant to you. And then also we can really break it down further But the point is what he is referencing is the I am that I am, or the God presence, which is in the Head, Heart, and Hand Decrees book that I thought that I had there and I don't. So that's too bad. I've got so many books. So many little books. The Creative Power of Sound, How to Work with Nature Spirit, Saint Germain, Work with Angels, all by the prophets. It's really awesome to have access to such sacred information and have a guide to actually be able to help me in that process. And the same is true for you. I know that must be true too. And then somehow I decided not to hold on to that page. It's not such a big deal because we finished that chapter. So, shall we continue? It's only been 15 minutes. Honestly, guys, I want to get through this because I want to get into the next book, which is about alchemy and Saint Germain on alchemy. So, we're going to read the 4 foundational books. And this one is literally not even that long. It's 89 pages, and we're on page 30. Woohoo! Maybe we can do it tonight. What do you think? All right. Are you guys ready? Mr. Julius has just made himself comfortable. I was trying to turn that around, and he is getting nervous because ultimately my little camera. Oh, what do you think, Boo? Isn't he beautiful? I think so too. I know. You can't see, but you guys could. And that's my little Boo. So, you ready? Let's go. Woohoo! Jules! Oh, God. This is such important, fundamental information that I have roughly grasped or gained access to over the years. That hot chocolate is so delightful. Whoops. Sorry. Who is there? There's no man alive that is qualified to guide me. Well, that's good. I'm not a man. Ha 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 ha. Oh, fun, fun, fun. But that's all good. We are guiding ourselves. We just have to become able to respond, stewards of the land that is us. So we are territory. Our thoughts are territories as well. Our belief systems take up space within the inner real estate. And we are about to go into chapter 5, the intensification of the aura. Chapter 5, the intensification of the aura. Man thinks of himself as solid. He lives within an envelope of flesh and blood that is penetrated by his consciousness. Consciousness must be regarded as man's connection with his source, and its flexibility as man's greatest asset. Wrongly used, it is his greatest weakness. The consciousness of humanity today is so easily influenced by banal and barbaric doings that the magnificent cosmic purpose heaven has prepared in the creation of man is seldom recognized even minutely. Man so easily becomes involved in the trivial manifestations of the footstool kingdom, and his indoctrinations, being what they are, make him believe that the divine purposes and the doings of the ascended masters would not be to his liking. The singing of devotional songs, the chanting of holy mantras, the engaging of the mind in spiritual conversation and prayer to the Almighty are regarded today by the sophisticates as a milksop endeavor which could not possibly produce any good for them, but is reserved only for the weak-minded. May I challenge this concept in toto and say that the greatest strength, the noblest ideal, and truest valor is to be found in the aspirant who ultimately achieves first his adeptship in his fulfillment of the divine plan and then his eventual mastership in the ascension. Man erroneously think that only Jesus and a few other notable figures from the biblical centrum have ascended. How they would change their minds if they could see the cloud of witnesses above them in the heavens. It is time that men understood the effects of their consciousness and their thoughts upon the human aura. I would go so far as to say that even their opinions have a strong influence upon them for good or for ill. I suspect that many have decided that I do not intend to discuss the negative aspects of the human aura. Perhaps they are right, we shall see. I am interested in stressing how that grandiose aura of the Christed One, surging with light, radiates out a divine quality in its very emanation that carries healing, nobility, honor, and cosmic strength to all who come in contact therewith. This aura of which I speak is not and never can be the product either of man's environment or of a social involvements. It is produced by divine doings, by entering into the cosmic consciousness of God through involvement with universal purpose, and especially by contact with our brotherhood. There is still so much vanity, however, in the whole business of God seeking. There are times when we would gladly chasten men because of our love for them, if doing so would stimulate a greater involvement in the only and true purpose behind the manifestation of their lives. Remember, the light shines in the darkness, and whereas the darkness comprehends it not, those who do begin to open their understanding, because this is their desire, will find an absolute intensification of the light taking place within themselves. Hence, a great deal more spirituality is involved in the God flame within the heart of each individual than he at first realizes. In this very flame, man has a catalyst posited right himself, a spark plug that can motivate him to make such attunement with his presence whereby the magnificent influences of our brotherhood can shine through his aura and he can become the outpost of heaven upon earth. Whoever said and who dares to say that any person has the exclusive Whoever said and who dares to say that any one person has the exclusive possession of this quality when it is the divine plan for all to radiate the one light? Just as man and all things were made by one spirit, so the one spirit expects all to enter in at the door. The door of the Christ consciousness literally trembles with anticipation of the moment when the individual will joyously enter into the sheepfold of his own reality. And then that was linked to number 3. Which one will that be? Now we go digging for the place that was referenced in this book. And now we go and find what was referenced. The colorations of the aura, that's not what it was. We're going to chapter 5. That is what we're looking at. John 10, 1, 2, 2, woo. So that's from John 10, 1 to 2. That reference. The reference that I've lost. Oh, that's at the very bottom. Okay, very good. Okay. So talking about the sheepfold of his own reality is from John 10, 1 to 2. Probably some of you may wonder just what I am driving at and why. When I have offered to you studies on the human aura, I seem to be going around Robin Hood's barn. I can understand that, and I feel that now is the time for me to tell you that by this method, I'm seeking to develop a special quality in all of our students. That quality, which is of the Christ, will enable you to develop the kind of an aura that I will call self-proving, because it can be consciously intensified to do the most good. In effect, man's aura is literally a broadcasting station for God's energy and his cosmic rays. Energies of light and the very thoughts of God himself and of the ascended masters combine with the benign thoughts that emerge from the very life plan of the individual and are then beamed or broadcast in all world of form. Those who are sensitive and can attune with these waves may perceive their nature and their origin, while those who do not understand cosmic law may become beneficiaries of these wondrous energies without ever knowing their source. It makes little difference. We are concerned with overcoming the preponderance of human darkness that is abroad in the world today by literally flooding forth more light through the auras of many souls who shall dedicate their lives as outposts of cosmic regeneration to the planet. Christ said, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness. When we speak of the light of the world, we speak of the light of the aura, and we are talking about a tangible manifestation. It is difficult for me to restrain myself when I hear the thoughts of individuals who carelessly read my words and then say what a nebulous concept he brings forth. Contrary to their opinions, my concepts are incisive, and they are given with a very definite purpose in mind and directly in accord with the one law of God. I say this because I am talking about permanent manifestations of universal grace, and withal I am trying to impress upon your minds. Oh, with all is combined. So there is one less A, or there's one less L, and it's one word. So withal. With all becomes with all without the L and no space. So there, we learn a new whimsical word because whimsical is another word that's on that same page. Let me go back and find where I was. Maybe I will actually have some more of my hot chocolate. Delicious. It's actually my Organo Gold coffee. I stopped selling that. Not that I ever really promoted it, just because I just would like to be able to give people a more natural option that takes out another one of the middlemen. And I would like to be able to build my own good products, communities, and have outreach and things like that. So that's kind of part of all of this. We need people strong. We need people understanding who they are. We need people really coming to understand the aura so they can understand the power that we have within ourselves. And if we understand the things that we were definitely not taught, then we are able to do things that we thought not we could do before, and now we know we can. So let's learn how to do that together again. I do love rhyming, as you know. Where did I lose my spot is when it was with all. Have you ever lost your word like that right when you were in the middle of something? It's not ideal at all. Oh, there we are. I say this because I am talking about permanent manifestations of universal grace. And withal, I am trying to impress upon your minds the great fact that the love of God, the law of his love, is very much involved with the human aura. What is the human aura if it is not an extension into the world of form, into the universal web of the sum total of what the individual really is? Well, then, if a man manifests a whimsical attitude, working his own or another's will without discrimination, sometimes good, sometimes bad, or indifferent, can this be compared with the one who is literally harnessed to the divine dynamo and whose aura can be seen by those who truly see as beginning to vibrate with the universal purpose? Not only do I know that these states of consciousness cannot be compared, but I know that one day in the changing consciousness of humanity, the former will cease to be altogether. For God will win. Of this I am certain, and those who follow the way of darkness because of the consuming of the thread of their own identity will ultimately be extinguished, although by the very fires of creation. For God is the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer, and we have seen him in these and many guises. In heaven's name, from whence cometh energy? What is it that beats your heart? Wish obviously not your own, or it would not so suddenly terminate. Instead, the will of God, the desire of God beats your heart. Men's lives would not be paltry then, if they also let him determine their consciousness and their words. Determine their consciousness and their thoughts. Now that we have created a certain measure of understanding in many of our students about the factors that influence the human aura, we shall begin to show in greater detail the processes involved in broadcasting the qualities of the Christ, so that great good can flow from your being out into the world in these troubled times and create in the brilliance of the shine In the brilliance of the sunshine, a new awareness that fulfills the destiny of the children of men under the cosmic teachers for this age. Extending my love to each of you, I hold the chalice of holy wisdom to be of special value in creating a new future out of which shall be born a greater summoning of understanding and its use. For knowledge must be correctly used and appropriated by transcendent magnificence rather than consumed on a few short years of sense pleasures without purpose. The brotherhood beckons to the many. The many can respond. If only the few do, I am certain we shall take delight in opening the curtain for them upon a new era of possibility. Let the weaving of regeneration begin anew, the spinning of the tapestry of heaven's deepening involvement in the raising of humanity into the folds of the brotherhood, into the delight of revealed purpose. I remain firmly established in that purpose. Chapter 6, The Strengthening of the Aura. The thrust for a purpose envisioned by Master Almoira should be brought to bear not only upon the activities of the Brotherhood mutually coordinated on earth and in heaven, but also upon the life of each and every student. One of the first exercises I wish, therefore, to give to the students for the strengthening of the aura involves a threefold action. The student begins by visualizing the threefold flame expanding from within the secret chamber of his heart. The threefold flame, anchored in the 8-petaled chakra called the hidden or secret chamber of the heart, has 3 plumes that embody the 3 primary attributes of God. The blue plume on your left embodies God's power. The yellow plume in the center embodies God's wisdom. The pink plume on your right embodies God's love. He then seals himself and his consciousness in a globe of white fire, and when he is set, he proceeds to recite the following words with utter humility and devotion. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. God consumes my darkness, transmuting it into light. This day I am a focus of the central sun, flowing through me as a crystal river, a living fountain of light that can never be qualified by human thought and feeling. I am an outpost of the divine. Such darkness as has used me is swallowed up by the mighty river of light, which I am. I am light. I live in light. I am light's fullest dimension. I am light's purest intention. I am light, flooding the world everywhere I move, blessing, strengthening, and conveying the purpose of the kingdom of heaven. As you visualize the cosmic white fire radiance around yourself, do not be concerned with the errors in your thought that through the years may have intruded themselves upon your consciousness. Do not allow yourself to be concentrate upon any negative quality or condition. Do not let your attention rest upon your supposed imperfections. Instead, see what the light can do for you. See how even your physical form can change, how a strengthening of the bonds of your health can occur in body, mind, and spirit. Try this exercise, simple though it may seem, and know that many ascended beings will be performing it with you. So many times adults fear to be thought childlike. They would rather appear to be worldly wise and sophisticated if they only knew that they are running from deep-seated fears and insecurities which they have buried beneath the clamor of social doings. Surely, with all they know about the physical universe, their environment, and the patterns of the mind, they must be able to reveal how great they really are. But, dear hearts, what a shock some men and women are in for when they shall come face to face with the blazing truth of reality and realize that so much of what they have learned must be unlearned, and that what they have thought to be their own greatness must be sacrificed upon the altar of the true greatness of the Christ self. Then perhaps they will compare that which they do not yet know with that which they do know. Then perhaps they will compare that which they do not yet know with that which they do know, and they will see how very lacking in luster they are in the eyes of the cosmic hierarchy. It is not needful to impress the masters with any quality you may have. Heaven already knows exactly what you are above and below. Heaven already knows that you are made in God's image and likeness. If you return to that image in a simple, sweet, and childlike manner, I can promise you that heaven will not allow you an overabundance of time in which to function in the domain of the child, but it will elevate you into the consciousness of a mature son or daughter of God. While you maintain the attitude of the child, you will be able to do something for yourself that will be both valuable and valid. Loose the ties that bind you to your egocentricities, until at last the little bird of the soul shall flit into the heavens and behold the glory of the eternal Son. We in our brotherhood of the golden robe are devoted to the freeing of those who are yet enmeshed in the vain aspects of the human consciousness, that they may develop spiritually, free at last to express the purposes of life as God intends them to do, is our prayer. Many think it would be so nice if God would speak the word, and suddenly, as with the rushing of a mighty wind, all could speak the heavenly language. Men forget the karmic patterns that others have carelessly woven, and even the patterns that they themselves have woven. They forget that these are the self-made prison walls that keep them from discovering the delights of heaven and from becoming gods among men. They do not understand that this planet is a schoolroom, and that in these latter days many have permitted their consciousness to grow dark, even while knowledge seems increased across the land. The knowledge that is important is the knowledge whereby man becomes first the master of his own consciousness and then the master of his world. Whereas, in a relative sense, one man may attain greater mastery than another in the manipulation of energy within a finite circle, this in no way guarantees that the big frog in the little pond will be able to navigate in the circle of the infinite. We are concerned with the measure of a man's advancement according to the divine precepts of the brotherhood, which have been established under the guidance of the Eternal Father from the beginning. We are interested not in generation, but in regeneration. Now, I am well aware that for some of our readers, it is even a new idea that their thoughts can impinge upon others, or that the thoughts of others can influence their own mood. Nevertheless, it is so. The wise will therefore seek scientific methods of dealing with the problems of auric influences and thought penetration. If everyone knew how to use the tube of light and the violet consuming flame and believed in this method of self-transformation, I am certain that the world would be a different place. The dissemination of such practical knowledge is invaluable when it is applied by those who receive it. Hence, I urge those disciplines who have been calling for more light to be alert to properly use that which we shall release as they practice the aforementioned exercise. In the human aura, so many nodules of dark and shadowed substance continually spew out their pollutants into the mainstream of man's energy, sapping his strength and weakening the entire manifestation of his life. That there is a great need for the flushing out of darkness by a bubbling action of the light. Naturally, I am concerned that we first clear up these centers of shadow, the shadow of misqualification that is within man, before we energize the consciousness of our students. This problem sometimes presents a moot point, for those who pray often, who decree much, who love much, who involve themselves with the whole repertoire of the mantras of our brotherhood, seldom realize that as they gain in the power aspect of God, or even the love aspect of God, they also need the holy wisdom that shall direct their proper use of that fort of energy. To misuse energy to send out enormous power into the world like billowing storm clouds is not the fulfillment of the divine intent. Energy should be directed as the perfect day, coming from heaven into the lives of all it contacts. Let radiant blue skies and golden drops of sunlight pour through the foliage of man's consciousness, increasing the green, the beauty, and the color of the day of perfection in all men's thoughts. May I chasten some by pointing out that sometimes knowingly and sometimes unknowingly you are using the energy of God to further your own moods and feelings in the world of form. Try God's way, the way of perfection. For just as the Christ consciousness is the mediator between God and man, so man has become a joint mediator with Christ, and inasmuch as he does what he wills with the energy God gives him, he controls in a relative sense in the world of form a portion of the divine energy for the entire planet. When he realizes this, the whole foundation of his life can be altered if he wills it so. This thought is injected as a direct quote from a conversation I had with beloved Almoira, and I trust the students will take it to heart. What a wonderful opportunity lies before you as a gift from God as you currently use his energy. Why, you can literally mold yourself and the whole world in the divine image. The potential for goodness lying within man is wondrous indeed, and as he learns how to properly extend and guard his auric emanations, he will realize more and more of that potential. We shall do our part to make known the wondrous kingdom of heaven to as many as we possibly can. Will you help us to reach out in God's name as his hands and feet to lovingly become more and more the manifestations of the grace of God? The auric cloud glows, the auric cloud grows. The beauty of the kingdom of heaven solidifies in man as he gains a greater understanding of his own real nature. I remain serenely in the light of purpose. 7. Chapter 7, The Expansion of the Aura. Coalescing. Coalescing around the spinal column are little portions of magnetic energy which I choose to call pieces of human destiny. As a man thinks, so is he. As a man feels, so is he. As a man is, so goes his relationship with God, with purpose, and with the whole domain of life. The fabric of a man's being is composed of minutiae. The fabric of a man's being is composed of thought, and thought is indeed made up of the same substance as that faith once delivered into the saints. Now, as we recognize the need to let the sense of struggle cease, we want the students to develop in their consciousness the living tides of reality that flex the muscles of true spiritual being, enabling it to take dominion over the earth. Just as Christ walked upon the waters, so humanity must learn the way of the possessor. Of light. It has been said that the way of the transgressor is hard, and those who possess the divine potential and exercise it in the divine way are in contact with the cloud of witnesses that from spiritual realms extend the energies of the purpose of God to the earth. There is a time in the lives of most children when heaven seems very near. Their journeys through the portals of life and death reveal the celestial truth of soul knowing, often forgotten with the passing of the years. Contact with heaven through the reestablishment of the threads of light between the heart and being of man and the living Father is beautiful and necessary if the world is to mature into an age of renewed innocence and tenderness expressed by mankind toward one another. Grace is a very special quality of God that charges the aura with a buoyant and joyous expression of heaven's beauty and wonder, continuously expressed here below and continuously expressed above. There is neither boredom nor unhappiness in the celestial state, a sense of ongoingness that knows no defeat of sordid thought nor shame in its reflections. The miracle of eternity is caught in the web of time as man momentarily understands the power of his influence at the courts of heaven, as he realizes through oneness with his Christed being that he is the maker of his own destiny. How much help is given and how much help can be evoked from the universal is a subject in its own right, yet I feel the need to assert on behalf of the students everywhere their friendship with those who dwell in the ascended master consciousness, in the Christ consciousness, a friendship maintained through the liaison of the angelic hosts and God-free beings and even the tiny elementals who are involved in the very outworkings of physical manifestation. The words of the psalmist, "For he shall give his angels charge over thee, lest thou dost thy foot against a stone," are intended for every son of God, yet the temptation to command that these stones be made bread for the purpose of assuaging mortal hunger is very great. Nevertheless, every son of God must be prepared to overcome this temptation as the Master did when he rebuked the lie of the carnal mind with the words, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." Just as the world has its conspiracies practiced against the sons and daughters of God by those conspirators of Satan whose lives are literally snuffed out without their ever knowing the end from the beginning, so heaven has its own conspiracy of light, and its emissaries are conspiring to evolve the wondrous God designs which the Father hath prepared for them that love him. Now as the celestial bower is momentarily lowered into view, the shape of things to come is revealed. When God does do his perfect work as planned, to right the wrongs of men by sole demand and newly bring to view the hopes the ages sought but never understood, the love and sacrifice he bought to gather sheep and consecrate all lives to higher goals and drives they little understood. He vowed the plan to sweep from man that hoary dust of ages overlaid to make man unafraid. By love he showed to them that they should understand the power of the pen that's mightier than the sword, and teaches all that I am, casting out all fear for those who call upon me far and near. My light beams like a star of hope, dimensions newest opening upon the words I spoke, for there is hope for all beneath the sun and star or even moon. For all things neath thy feet reveal the way complete is ever found within my word, the precious bread I broke. For thou art mine and I am thine. Our living souls awoke. Oh, see the magnet purpose, glorious connecting chain, eternal joy revealed as love does ever reign. Devoted ones, the pathway to the stars is found in the thread of light anchored within the individual's auric pattern expands naturally. Man has so often been concerned with the concepts and the many manifestations of the human aura, how to protect it, how to direct it, how to increase it, how to see it, how to interpret it, that he has seldom taken into account these simple words Jesus long ago revealed. Let your light so shine before men. This light of which he spake is the light that can be magnetized through the human aura, for it is the human emanation which heaven would make divine. Therefore, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your God and glorify your Father which is in heaven. In our studies of the human aura, which are given to those who journey to our retreats, as well as you who are fortunate to receive our instruction, who seek to promote the same understanding that Jesus imparted to his disciples, sometimes through parable, sometimes through objective analysis of themselves and their contemporaries, sometimes through direct teachings on the law which he read to them from the archives of the Brotherhood. His entire effort was to demonstrate what man can do and what man can be when he unites with the God flame. And I say to you today that it is to be. It is beingness. It is to understand that you are a ray of intense light that cometh from the central. That you are an intense light that cometh from the central sun into the world of form. It is the key to creative mastery. You must understand that you can draw forth renewed magnificence and devotion to the cause of your own immaculate freedom, and that this freedom can be a crystal river from the throne of God through your aura, which you have consecrated as a vessel of the Holy Spirit and into the world of man. You must understand that wherever you go, your opportunity to let your light, your aura shine goes with you, and that because you have being and are being, you can take the sling of enlightened fortune and fling into the world with almost delirious abandon your cup of joy that runneth over in simply being a manifestation of God. You must increase your understanding of the magnificence of flow, the flow of the little electrons in their pure fiery state that seem to dance with total abandon and then again to march like little soldiers in precision formation, now disbanding as they consume, now disbanding as they assume what at first may seem to be erratic shapes, now regrouping in their intricate geometric patterns. Purposely, man pours out into the universe the healing balm that is his real self in action. Its flow is guided by the very soul of the living God, by an innate and beautiful concept of perfection steadily emanating to him and through him. Does man do this? Can man do it of himself? Jesus said, I can of mine own self do nothing, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the work. He doeth the work. But the Father that dwell in me, he doeth the work. Understand that the inner fires banked within yourself by the fire of the Holy Spirit can be expanded by your own desire to be God's will in action. Understand that these fires will act as a divine magnet to increase the flow of perfection into your aura and thence into the world. Understand that you must therefore wax enthusiastic about daily expanding your light through your meditations upon the Holy Spirit, because it is our belief that men would do better if they knew better. We have written this series even as long ago dedicated our service to the enlightenment of the race. It is our desire to teach men that the human aura need never be a muddied sea, but can ever be an eternal seeing into the streams of immortal perfection whence cometh each man's being. One of the facts men should understand is that along with the pollution of our consciousness with impure thoughts and feelings and the emanations of the mass mind, which seem to take possession of the very fires of being and entrap them within imperfect matrices, is their desire for self-perpetuation. Hence often the little pitiful, dark-shadowed creatures of human thought and feeling will clothe themselves with a sticky overlay of qualities and conditions calculated to preserve the loves of the little self, thereby gaining acceptance in the consciousness bent on its own preservation. This is done in order to obscure the light of truth and to impugn it by reason of its very simplicity and perfection. Do not be deceived. The light is yours to behold. The light is yours to be. Claim it. Identify with it, and regardless of whether or not men may mock simplicity, be determined in your childlike efforts to mature in God. One day the divine man-child will come to you, and the aura of the living Christ will be yours to behold and to be. To follow him in the regeneration is to follow him in the suntides of the light that he was, that he is, that he ever shall be. You cannot cast yourself upon the rock and not be the broken. But this is preferable to having the rock fall upon you and grind you to powder. There are more things in heaven than men on earth have dreamed of, yet wondrous threads and penetration have occurred and many have come home. We await the redemption of the world, and we need in our brotherhood those who, while having fallen in error, can simply trust and place their hands in ours as in the hand of God. For then the shuttle of the highest cosmic workers can move to and fro, from above to below, to carry greater instruction to the race of men, to the fountain of the individual life, where the shield of the aura is esteemed for the wonder God has made it. Next, let us talk about the shield of the aura. God be with you, each one. Whew. All right. We are on page 53, and there is literally only like 89 pages. So we are already so close to the end. It's amazing. I am absolutely thrilled. So thank you for being with me. We'll put that, you know what we can do? We can put that in between there. So that's where we got to go when we need to reference anything. And then this is to the end of the book, so then we know. Woohoo! Let's go. Chapter 8, The Shield of the Aura. Some men upon the planet are little aware of the need for protection to the consciousness, nor are they aware of the possibility of others creating a barrage of negative energy to disturb the equilibrium of their life streams. Let us set the record straight. There are many who are at various stages of mastering the control their fellow man by a wide range of tactics and techniques. There are also spiritual devotees of varying degrees of advancement who are in the process of mastering the godly control of energy and who understand somewhat the brotherhood systems of protection and the countermeasures they can take in defense of their own life plan. A God endeavor indeed. Upon this earth, heaven needs many who can work the handiwork of God. If a planet is to fulfill its destiny, it must have those who can work in the light of God that never fails, unhampered by the forces of Antichrist that would, if they could, tear down every noble endeavor of the sons and daughters of God. From time to time, these are and will be viciously assaulted through psychic means, whereby the garments of their individual auras are sometimes penetrated and even rent, unless they are spiritually fortified. Yet that blessed aura, when it is properly intensified and solidified with light, becomes the shield of God against the intrusion of all negative energy, automatically and wondrously repelling those arrows that fly from the dark domain, seeking to penetrate the peace of God that abides within, hence destroying peace. Let me remind all of the natural envelope of invulnerability that serves as the protection of every man against those arrows of outrageous fortune that fly so loosely in the very atmosphere of the planet betwixt men. However, through extraordinary measures, the forces of darkness are often able to engage men in some form of argument, whereby, through inharmony, they momentarily forfeit their protection. This is the game they play to catch men with their guard down. Then again, they launch such an attack of viciousness as to cause them, through fear, to open up their worlds to discordant energies, which results in the rending of their garments. Earlier in the series, I gave an exercise for the strengthening of the aura through the development of the consciousness of invulnerability. Now I would make plain that in addition to spiritual fortitude, one must also have spiritual reserves, what could almost be called reserve batteries of cosmic energy. The storing up of God's light within the aura through communion with the Lord of hosts and through invocation and prayer, plus the sustaining of the consciousness in close contact with the angels, with the tiny builders of form acting under divine direction, and with all who are friends of light, creates an alliance with the forces of heaven. Through contact with through contact with each devotee's aura, these veritable powers can then precipitate the necessary spiritual fortifications that will give him a more than ordinary protection in moments of need. Let the student understand that his protection is threefold. First of all, he enjoys by the grace of God the natural immunity of the soul, which he must not forfeit through anger or psychic entrapment. Then there is the assistance of the angelic hosts and cosmic beings with whom he has allied himself, and his force field through invocation and prayer. And last, and certainly not least, there is the opportunity to request of his own presence the continuation of godly defense through an intensification of the tube of light that will also establish in his aura the needed protective strata of energy, which create a protective concept that cannot be penetrated. Bear in mind that sometimes the best defense of man's being is a necessary offense, and when you find that it becomes necessary to momentarily engage your energies in this way, try to think of what the Master would do, and do not allow your feelings to become negative or troubled by your contact with human discord of any kind. You will consciously clothe yourself with the impenetrable radiance of the Christ, asking yourself what the Master would do under these circumstances. You will know when to take the stand. Get thee behind me, Satan, and when to employ the tactic of gently holding your peace before the pilote of some man's judgment. Remember always the goal fitting that is required of those who would remain in the building. who would remain on the path. Remember always the goal fitting that is required of those who would remain on the path. You did not begin upon the path in order to become involved in strife. You began in order to find your way back home and to once again hold those beautiful thoughts of celestial fortitude and cosmic intelligence that would create in you the spirit of the abundant life. Birthless, deathless, timeless, eternal, there springs from within yourself this crystal fountain of light, ever flowing, cascading in its own knowingness of the joys of God that create a chalice from which can be drunk the very water of life. Freely you have received, and freely you must give, for the heart of each man can gather quantities without measure of his infinite love in its superabundant onrushing. There is an erroneous thought in man that I must decry. It is the idea that man can get too much of spirituality. Oh, how fragile is the real thought of truth about this subject, and how easily it is shattered by human density and the misappropriation of energy. Man can never secure too much of God if he will only keep pace with him, with his light, with his consciousness, with his love. It is up to each one to do so, for no one can run the eternal race for you. You must pass through the portals alone. You must be strengthened by your own effect. And you must also face the dragons of defeat and darkness that you once allowed free reign in your own arena of thought and feeling. Slay these you must by the sword of spiritual discrimination, thus building an aura of use to the masters of the Great White Brotherhood. Of what use is an electrode? Like the hard tip of a penetrating arrow flying through the air, an electrode becomes a point of release of giant energies that leap forth to conquer. And there are many things that need to be conquered. Above all, there are within oneself conditions of thought and sensitivities of feeling that require man's dominion. The man of whom I speak is the heavenly man, the man who abideth forever, one with God as a majority of good. His heart must not be troubled, and the injunction of the master, let not your heart be troubled, must be heeded. For the aura is a beautiful electrode that can become of great use to heaven, and it must be consciously strengthened if man is to truly realize his potential. Don't you understand with me the need to be the shield of God, to remain unmoved regardless of what conditions or difficulties you may face? For it is the power of heaven that liveth in you, and to strengthen the emanation of light from your being, both from the within to the without, and from the without to the within. You can receive both from without and from within of the spirit of the strengthening light that maketh man truly aware that he can be in his aura and in his being of beings, and in his very being of beings, a shield of God, impenetrable, indomitable, and victorious. I remain firm in the love of the purpose of your being. All right, 1 hour in, and we're like 30 pages from the end. So, how come it got placed in a different spot? Oh, I put it there. I see. I had thought I put it in between this and the second book, so I didn't. Here we go. Chapter 9, The Protection of the Aura. Beware of those who, by intellectual argument or religious dogma, seek to destroy your beautiful faith in the gossamer veiled protection of the angels. By his unbelief, man has failed to realize the magnificent protection that the human aura can receive from the angelic hosts. By his lack of recognition and his lack of attunement, he has allowed himself to pass through many harrowing experiences that could have been avoided by a simple cry for assistance. Beings whom God ordained from the foundation of the world, his swift messengers of love, wisdom, and power. Have you thought upon the love, wisdom, and power that the angels convey? May I suggest that you do it today? For over the track of your thoughts and the extension